Alright, another Tim Cain video. To my fellow game developers. I don't know what this one's about. Maybe he's just telling us that we're doing a good job. Maybe he tells us that we suck. I think it's more a combination of both in most cases. What do you have to say, Tim?
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today I want to talk to my fellow game developers. I know this is Friday. This is not going to be my typical fun Friday video. It's not sad, it's just a little more serious. And also, I'm not talking about the game development process. What I want to do is talk to my fellow game developers about kind of mindset. I don't want to talk about game development process. I don't want to give you ideas for games or tips on how to organize your design or smooth out the development process. It's more about how you should think about things. And I can give you the short answer up front if you don't want to watch the whole video, and that is this. I know you want to make the perfect game, but there is no perfect game.
Facts. I mean, he's just spitting facts. There is no perfect game, and perfect is the enemy of released. Save it for the sequel. Just, do your best job. Get it out in the time frame. You have milestones, and you should have dates that you set because they help to encourage you to, make those tough decisions that you inevitably have to make. Star Citizen. Just get the game out. You can perfect it maybe with some updates or work on a sequel, make it better. Just keep going. Most of the time I agree with Tim Cain. I do too. He's very knowledgeable. You respectfully disagree with this video. Okay. Let's see what he says. Do you disagree with that? Or do you disagree with other things said here? I will tell you why. Okay, tell us why before we go deeper. I'll get Tim on an evil look, like he's looking right at you. No. Did you watch it? Are there other reasons that he states here that you don't like? Or you agree with that? Okay. We'll keep watching. I assume that you are one of those 8 dislikes. I got you. I got your back, Tim.
Perfect game. And if you want to stop there, go right ahead. I will get into a lot more detail. If you've watched all my videos, even if you've just watched some of my videos, I talk about how complicated the whole development process is. I talk about production and testing and design and even the order in which you should do design, which I believe is setting, story, system mechanics. I talk about marketing. I talk about talking to the press. I talk about going to conventions. I talk about working with artists and working with programmers. It is complicated, and I know that can be daunting. And you should know ahead.
It is. I mean, it is daunting. It's just some games can fail if you mess up even at one of those stages bad enough. And most development processes are not smooth. Even the games that are good often have horrible development processes behind them. And, it's ideally you have a really nice, healthy development process and you release a good game, but the amount of times that that's happened is very, very small, and it's not really like it's becoming better. I mean, there's crunch, there's bad bosses, there's people that have pushed changes that, you had to fight tooth and nail to push against, and it's just, I don't know. It's never perfect, and you can constantly try and make it better and smoother, but there's still always going to be problems because you're dealing a lot with people, and it's a very high stress, high competition field. One bad day can, trickle down into other people's work, and I don't know, just one bad, all it takes is one thing to go wrong to destroy a timeline.
That can be daunting. And you should know ahead of time, there are going to be things in that process, that whole gamut of things that you're not going to be good at.
True.
Conversely, though, there are going to be some things that you are great at that no one on the team, maybe no one at the company, is better doing than you.
And you could still mess up.
Both of those things are things you should think about.
Yeah.
What are these things that I'm really good at? What are these things that I'm really bad at? What is it I want to do?
That's really important. I talk about that a lot, not to discourage people who are solo developers, but that being a solo developer means that you have to do all of that. That you have to do all of it. And you might not be good at some of it. In fact, more times than not, you are not it's not even 1%, it's 1 out of 1 million who can do all of those things well. Do you really want to do it all yourself, or would you be more efficient and maybe even have a better game by bringing somebody on who's more specialized in the things that you're not good at? And then you have to communicate how you want to break up those responsibilities, because yes, you might have some overlap with that other person, but ultimately it's less efficient for them to be doing 80% of the work when they need to be doing 50% of the work at 100% capacity rather than 80% at 50% capacity each. So it's about balancing that out. You shouldn't be a maverick and you shouldn't be a martyr. There's a great talk about from Carrie Patel, who I think now is a game director at Obsidian. For whatever you want to think of their games, I think she has a great GDC talk about mavericks and martyrs, and both of these can be very toxic to a company. Even though you would think, oh, the maverick, the guy going out of his way, doing work on the weekends to help the company, is the one that we should be promoting and helping, but ultimately it's not. It's not, and it can blow up in your face and in your company big time by promoting unhealthy work practices, or maybe that person is spread too thin and not being efficient or doing the jobs that they are good at well enough to be beneficial to the team. So we're getting a bit off topic, but Tim's right. Find what you're good at, find what you like doing, and double down on that, because in most cases in the industry, that is the pathway to success and to find a job. People don't hire you because you say that you can do everything kind of okay. They're hiring you for a specific role because they want you to do that role exceptionally well.
And you're going to navigate the complexities of this process over your career. And I'm talking to people now, whether you've made a few games or you're just now making your first game, or you're thinking about, putting your little toe in the pool of game development. All of this complexity can sound super daunting, but you will be okay. You'll be fine. But I want to give you a little bit of advice. I've hinted at it here and there in my videos.
I'm a little bit less optimistic than Tim with some of
that.
that.
Here it is. Don't just watch my videos. Read the comments. Read all of the comments. Most of the people who watch my videos don't read any of the comments. I'm not talking about just a few.
Hey.
Because there are people who will literally post something, and it's almost word for word what the person who just posted in front of them posted, or an hour ago, or 2 hours ago, or the pinned comment.
I'm a little called out. I don't read the comments. I'm sorry, Tim, I don't read them. Maybe I should. I liked Carrie in her game Avowed. I thought Avowed was not a bad game. It wasn't bad. It was a little forgettable. This is where I start to disagree. Okay, we'll see what he says.
And that made me realize nobody's reading the comments, but I'm just telling you, game developers, read the comments, because there is gold in there. Absolute gold. Just mixed in with all those rocks are some really amazing diamonds. And
that's fair. Like, yeah, there's great advice. Great advice. I mean, that you can't just listen to one person and get a perfect picture of what the industry looks like, especially because it's multinational. It's all around the globe, and there are different cultures and practices. And I mean, somebody could just have an unlucky streak and work at 3 really bad places in a row. It happens. So, there are multiple pathways into this industry. There's no right way or wrong way. I mean, I guess there are wrong ways, but there are multiple right ways to do it. And, you can find the one that fits you. Some people have transitioned from other industries into game development and found success. Some people, like myself, have been modders for games and worked their way into the industry by leveraging the mods that they're working on, or multiple game jams, or a self-released game, or working with another team, or anything. I mean, there's even non-development jobs in the game industry that you can find. You could argue that QA is not a development job. I would kind of disagree with that, but You can work your way from QA into a design position or a programming position, whatever you choose. You could work as a community manager and maybe even find and learn some things along the way there. So there's tons of different ways in the industry, and by reading those comments, by finding other examples of people's advice and information, you can learn a lot from that.
You can find those and they speak to you and they're relevant to what you're working on. Cherish them, because you will never get more heartfelt, direct, unfiltered feedback than a gamer talking about some topic that they really, really love.
True.
But what's more is, and
Very
I talked
true.
about this, you're going to notice how people believe so many different things. Some people believe things that shouldn't belong in the same brain. It's very hypocritical things. Like, I don't like stealing, but I like that stealing. Or I think things should be this way, unless it affects me, in which case it shouldn't be that way at all. But you also find people on opposite sides of a topic, and they believe it passionately. Go to my videos on encumbrance or fast travel or quest markers, and there are people on both sides who passionately believe that those features belong in a game or should never be used in a game. They don't recognize the other side, or they think the other side are idiots, and they explain why they feel like what they do, and it is passionate. It is wonderful to read it.
I think it can be. I think it depends. There are some cases, with like my own chat here on Twitch, I really enjoy talking with you guys because in my like 2 years being on this platform with this specific channel, I feel like we can just talk about things and we can debate about design or about choices in a way that is productive and good faith. And it doesn't feel like I'm arguing with somebody on Reddit or like on Twitter or something where I'm just talking to a wall and they've already made up their mind. Good, passionate disagreement in good faith is a wonderful way to gain different perspectives and to maybe find a middle ground. But when it's not done in good faith, then I don't feel like it's very productive, and it isn't worth your time when you can find somebody who's productive. I mean, there's plenty of design ideas or opinions that I've had that you guys disagree with, and I explain my rationale, and you guys explain your rationale, and ultimately I will go home and I'll think about that, and maybe be like, you know what, I kind of see what they mean. Yeah, so maybe we can work it around like this and this and this, and then we'll come back the next day and we'll say, you know what, I thought about it some more. Let's move in this direction because it feels like it's more balanced. So just because I don't like the idea of debate, I don't like the idea of a winner and a loser in a discussion. I just like having those discussions. And I think that a lot of times when these discussions are publicized, especially you see this between like content creators, oh my god, oh, just debate me, come on and we can debate it. It's like, yeah, but you're trying to win your side, and so you're not going to capitulate to the other person. Rarely ever does this ever happen. And you're not looking for a middle ground, you're just looking to try and win. And therefore I have already decided that it's really not worth my time. Comment section isn't a good way to get feedback. I think that sometimes I don't know, it's just I think Tim is right. I agree that rarely will you ever find anybody more passionate and honest than a gamer who loves, like your game or your genre. And sometimes people vent out of frustration, but they want the game to get better. So it's depending on how it's worded, it can be worth listening to, but sometimes it's not very well worded. And I would say arguably that Tim's comment section is probably better than the average. Thankfully. I don't want people to start pestering Tim with a bunch of hate and useless, unproductive comments, but I assume that has happened before it's happened to me, and my channel is infinitesimally smaller than Tim's. People saying the same shit about games in the comment section on Reddit, Twitter. They do, and it has to be filtered, because not all of it is relevant. For instance, I'm making a coin pusher game. Somebody who hates arcade games and doesn't want to play a casual game is not my target audience. Their feedback could be nice, and sometimes it could be useless. And that is important. Not every person's opinion is relevant to what you're making. But that also doesn't mean that everybody who has negative feedback is irrelevant just because you can't say, "Oh, you don't like the game, it's not meant for you then." This is only a game that's meant for people who like it. It's like that's not the case. It's just you have to market it, you have to communicate it properly, and if you market and communicate your game with the right expectations, then most of the time the people who write negative things about it are people who were part of the target market or who thought that they were part of the target market and didn't receive the game that they were expecting. And those are more relevant. So you've already done one filter. It's nuanced, like everything in life.
And what I'm telling you as a game developer is use that. Don't reject these things.
Agreed.
Don't ignore them. You can use that passion and those beliefs for your games. You can use it to make interesting worlds filled with all kinds of people and factions who help each other and oppose each other. And it can be realistic because guess what? You can see on my own channel all the different groups of people who passionately feel a certain way and argue with each other, or sometimes just ignore each other.
Let up Twitter if you
or
want
don't
that.
realize that they're saying something which on one video that undermines something they said on the previous one, because as one person said, it's human to be hypocritical. It's okay. You're not writing a bad character if you write a character that way. Which, by the way,
in fact, I would argue the complete opposite. I would say that, I'm agree with Tim here, but I would say that you are writing a better human if you write a hypocritical human, because it is just an innately human thing. Or cherry picking is another very common thing. We're all flawed in those ways. We all have some hypocrisy, even if it's something as small as, I don't like eating raw tomatoes, but I'll have salsa. I mean, it's like, okay, so you like tomatoes, but not really. Even something small like that can help add depth and flavor to a character that is human. And that doesn't need to be their defining flaw or defining trait, but it's an additional layer that if you see a character in a TV show or an anime or a movie who is giving their vegetables to somebody else at the table, wordlessly doing that, and it's not focused upon at all, you've added depth that makes sense, that is humorous, that has nothing to do with the main story, but already makes it more interesting. Some people said they're not going to buy Switch 2, but it sold out immediately. Could Nintendo make good games if they listen to all feedback? I mean, yes, there are people that will, say bad things about how Nintendo, like Pokemon games are designed, but then they'll just instantly buy both of the new Pokemon games. There's more psychological factors to that, though. I think some of that's less hypocrisy and more. It's like a combination of hypocrisy, sunken cost, fear of missing out. It's FOMO. Being, it's also like status, so that if you consistently go to conventions or hang out in groups where you talk and all expect to be playing the new game, that if you don't, you will be excluded or ostracized, even unintentionally, from those groups. So lots of hate content. There's a lot of hate content. It's because humans bond more strongly via hate than via love. Humans bond off of hate. There's a lot of really nice articles and how people become emotionally invested in hate. There's a lot of it. So humans bond more strongly off of mutual hatred than mutual love. And you can see this psychological phenomenon working even in existing circles. I once read a book about it was written by a former military trainer. What are they called? The guys who yell all the time. Somebody help me out here with the word. At boot camp, they yell at the newbies. Someone will know. But they Yeah, I read a book from somebody who was like that, an instructor, whatever. You guys know who I'm talking about. And he specifically said that it was his goal on day one to make all of them hate him, because then they would bond stronger with each other, and you would have a more seamless platoon getting created from all these men from all around the world, all around the nation, coming together and competing, and that, having that masculine energy. And by making them all hate him, he made them bond stronger with each other. So it's fun, but it's funny, but it's used all throughout life. Humans bond around passion. You generally hate more passionately than love passionately. Sadly, I wish we worked differently, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
That way, which, by the way, beyond making interesting worlds, you can make really interesting storylines with all kinds of believable characters who are arguing with each other on basic things. And the game.
Take a look at what George Martin said, right? And one of the ways that he writes, and I might be paraphrasing here, is he likes to put characters into situations where their own heart is against itself, right? Human hearts against themselves, which is basically just saying that you are forced to do something that you don't want to do, or you're constantly, being pulled into that. It was the human heart in conflict with itself, is what I think it was specifically, where you're choosing that hypocritical life because it's easier, it's more convenient. That this is, it's frustrating to read a character that is constantly making these mistakes, but it is very believable, and it is very interesting to see this. And we see this with a lot of like the characters in Game of Thrones, where if you didn't know that this was the way that he wrote, and now you hear that his characters, he tries to write them where the human heart is in conflict with itself. Almost all of his characters, this is what what makes sense, is they're put in positions where they have to make these tough choices that go against their own values, that go against their own beliefs. And is this a character that will stick by their own beliefs? How does this work in a world where people who stick by their values, like Ned Stark, what kind of fate does he meet at the end of season 1, right? So yeah, I think it's a great way to write characters.
Developer don't have to take a side. I think that's where people start to bristle, is when if they think your game is preaching to them, they will get upset.
Yes, this is big. I mean, this is the reason why games like Dustborn upset me. It's not because there's plenty of games that are example of this. I mean, even like the kind of controversial game recently, Take Us North, about the following the stories of migrants crossing over the Mexico-Texas border. I don't think games like this should be disallowed. Of course, it's art, it's a story, and it should be allowed. Just note, and don't be upset that some people will not resonate with that, or you are going into the idea of making a game where it is purposefully controversial or aiming to tackle a controversial point that you might think you're on the right side of history on. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Who knows? That's not up for me to decide. Just note that there are going to be people that push against that. And you are instantly, especially if it's like a 50-50 issue in a lot of cases, or even one that seems 50-50 but is more like 80-20, you might be marketing this towards a niche, and you might have more people that dislike the message that you're trying to say versus the one that you're expecting to be saying. So, you make these choices during development. Just don't get upset with the results. If you choose controversy, expect controversy.
They will get upset. But if your game simply presents a problem,
mm-hmm.
presents an issue, whether it's a social issue or a political issue, an economic issue, and there are people on both sides of it, and they really feel strongly about their side, and you give them believable reasons to be on those sides, you're going to make a way better game.
Or instead of stating, one side bad, one side good, just show the honest conclusions, good and bad, of a situation, and therefore you're not preaching, you're simply exploring. And I think that a really good example of a TV show that did this amazingly well, and if you haven't seen it and you like realistic TV shows and shows that are questioning the morality of humans, The Wire. If you have not seen The Wire, I highly recommend it. It is one of the best shows that tackles and is still relevant to modern society, even being roughly like 20 years old now. Because it just shows you situations that exist, that did exist, that will continue to exist, and then just lets the characters explore this. And it shows bold approaches to problems and the good fallout and the bad fallout from those bold decisions, and how they ripple and resonate not through just through the characters on the screen, but also the different institutions that exist in this case Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, I mean, I think there's really smart ways to approach a topic and not without the intent of saying here's what we want to tell people, but mainly here's something we can explore and let the viewer or reader or player figure out what this means to them. A good example from a game is like the ending of The Last of Us 1 and Joel's decision. This was a decision that they brilliantly, I think, psychologically manipulated the player into making, because it is a linear game, and the resonance of that decision and whether or not you feel Joel was justified in that decision is great, because I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to it. There are things that he did that were bad. He might have done it for good reasons, and there were arguments to say that what he did was kind of justified. It's perfect. It's exactly what you would want. Hey, Hilden, or just say the world is evil and everyone is evil and join the mayhem. Yeah, you could just say I am right, everyone else is wrong, and therefore you should be sent to re-education camps, and violence is okay against people that I disagree with. Sadly, yes, a lot of people choose that option these days.
And of course, once you do all that world building and characters and story, now you make new mechanics that support all of that, which is the whole design process I've talked about. And it can start right here and right now by just looking at the comments on my videos. I've said many times, I read all of them, and I do. There are times I don't respond. Sometimes there are whole days I don't respond, either because I'm too busy or the comments are so wildly amazing to me, I don't even know where to start in a response. But I still read them and I still enjoy them, because the comments, and by extension the commenters on these videos, are amazing. Some people write heartfelt missives that are super long. I'm scrolling my screen to read them all, and they're even saying I don't think anyone's going to read these, which some people do, I think, to try to get me to respond. But some people write just what seemed to be Tim. Like a thesis on an idea.
Tim won't respond to this message.
Yeah.
Gotcha, Tim.
On the other hand, you have people who write pithy one-liners. And then you have everything in between. And it is amazing. Right there, you can see all the different gamut of NPCs you can create for your world. The person who just throws one line at you and doesn't really want to engage. The person who's trying to get you involved in whatever they care about. And everyone in between. What's interesting is I talked in one video about seagull managers, the ones who show up, make some comment and disrupt your entire project, and then they leave the room, and to them it's woo, I don't have to think about that anymore. There are people who've shown up, left one comment before on one of my videos, and they never come back, because YouTube Studio lets me click on someone's profile and it will tell me how many comments you've left anywhere on my channel. And there's some people who've come in, left one comment, and left. People have engaged with that comment, they never came back. Sometimes those comments just sit there. They're there for a year or 2 years now, and they just sit there, and the person has never come back.
I do find that weird. I've also seen that where, I don't know, I usually don't engage with something if I don't want to engage in it, right? And most of the time when I post something, I am doing it with the pretense that somebody will respond, and then I will respond to that. And if I'm not feeling confident in having a discussion about it, I just won't say it. Now, I do kind of wish that Tim and I could talk about the things in real time, which again, I will try to reach out to Tim and see if he'd be willing to talk with us on stream, because it would be so cool to meet him and just chat away about design and production for the, till the sun rises on the next day. But I feel like this is my way to comment. and to do so in a more long form manner for the people that enjoy long form content, podcast type stuff where they can just play a game on one screen, do their work on one screen, and listen to this interesting debate and realize that their shift is now over. They get to go home and have a nice, relaxing evening. To me, because that's the type of content that I enjoy watching when I go home, that's the type of content that I also enjoy making. And sometimes even, it's a little bit embarrassing to say, but when I go home and I commentate on videos as I listen to them at home. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like a streamer thing, or maybe it's like kind of like I just kind of do it for training. I will be listening to a video at home alone and pause it, say something out loud or think it in my brain, and then resume the content. So I don't know. I kind of just do this naturally. It's just I like to discuss things and think about things. And the more that I learn, the less that I feel like I know. So I feel like when I was younger, I was commenting more and more confidently. But as I get older, I'm way less confident. Way less confident. And sometimes I'm more just about, I like to just sit there and listen to both sides as opposed to having an opinion on both sides. It also gets me in less trouble. So that's a good thing.
That's interesting too. On the other side, though, I have some people who have commented on almost every video that I've posted. If not all of them, almost all of them, and at length. And they engage with other people and they talk to them and they are trying to figure out their views and they express their own views. And my guess is many of those people feel as much ownership of this channel as I do. And that's amazing. I never expected that level of engagement.
And ownership, actually, I was thinking about that. Ownership is really a nice part, because there's a lot of passion that can be driven from that feeling of ownership. That, I mean, especially if you look at like MMOs, where, my God, our fan bases of MMOs passionate. Not always the most positive, but they're definitely passionate. And they can feel like they spent 10, 20 years, sometimes over 20 years with this MMO. It is as much a part of their life, and even in some cases more so a part of their life than even like a new developer on the game that only started playing it and working on it 5 years ago. I mean, just from a raw hours perspective and the emotions and development of that human, those 20 years of playing that game have meant so much to them, and that passion comes from that experience. So yeah, it's important to engage with that passion. But if you are somebody with that passion too, you need to realize that sometimes you might be a little bit too emotionally entrenched in something that may not need that level of entrenchment. I don't know. There's a fine line between being passionate and being a little bit too serious about certain things.
I never expected that level of engagement.
I ride that line.
And some people say things that are just completely objectively, provably wrong. They say something about a sales figure, or we got into it on one of them. Somebody will tell me what my intent is.
Oh God, yeah, that's the most annoying shit in the world, when somebody just is like, no, you mean this, and it's like, no, I don't. Maybe I misworded it. No, you meant this. It's like, well, how are we supposed to have a discussion? You have told me what I am and what I feel, so there's no rebuttal here. Like, you have painted me. You will not allow me to paint myself. I will just stand here, I guess, or walk away, and you can paint my back as I leave. So yeah, that's really annoying. I mean, I see that too on Twitter a lot. People just, especially, I talk a lot about like Nanite and Lumen all the time, or Unreal Engine, and there's people who don't know what they're talking about and think that they are, and they're so confident that they're right, even though they know nothing about the technology. And it's like, how am I supposed to? Should I even approach this topic with this person? Because we're already starting from a point that they don't think they're wrong. So it's not even, I can't even start the discussion by trying to tell them the facts, because they believe that they know the facts. So we're operating on completely different playing fields. It isn't, oh, I don't know what it is. but I've heard this. At least then we can be like, okay, so here's what it actually is, and here's where we can have the discussion. And some things are right, some things are wrong. No, I don't know. I just kind of feel like those people are trying to argue in bad faith, or they don't want to have a discussion. They just want to be right. I don't think it's worth wasting your energy on people who are in that state, because there's nothing you can do to convince them.
On one of my games, and I've had to gently but firmly tell them, no, that's your interpretation. My intent is this. Your interpretation is this. Neither of us are wrong.
What didn't that happen with? Didn't that happen with? Sorry, I'm pausing it, but didn't that happen with Tim when people said that his game was anti-capitalist? Like Fallout is anti-capitalist. When I feel like that happened recently, and Tim had to come out and say that no, it was more just about, it was kind of like just anti-war, and it didn't really have any big overarching discussion about capitalism. I don't know. I feel like there was something that happened with that recently, or maybe I have it, the other way, and it's inverted, where it is about capitalism and wasn't about war. I don't remember.
Because when they say something that completely conflicts with something you believe, a lot of people want to argue, get in there and argue it out. Mm-hmm. I think you can do something much better than that as a game developer. You can try to understand why they feel that way. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to defend them. But you really should try to understand why they feel that way. And not necessarily so your next game won't have the feature they hate or the kind of characters they hate, but so you can understand where this passion is coming from, and you can put that into your game as maybe some NPCs that disagree with the main character or disagree with a big faction in the group, and they are believably disagreeing with them because you've seen that level of passion right here.
A really fun story, if you've never seen The Sopranos, the creator, one of the things he did when he would go into the writing room each morning is they would not talk about the script. They would talk about what happened in between last meeting and this meeting. Like, just what do they do in their lives? And they would share interesting stories or even small things that had a big impact. Like, maybe something happened at home with their kid. And they use those stories and general normal happenings to write the scripts for the story and the characters. And I would argue that you can feel that in The Sopranos, and I think some of the writers who worked on The Sopranos have since come out and said that they now do that with the TV shows that they were directing. And I think that's a really brilliant way to approach it. Is if you're trying to write a story about humans, then you need to understand humans. You need to understand those human conflicts. And we talked about The Wire during this, and The Wire was written, I think, with a combination of two books primarily, two nonfiction books, and with multiple people who not only lived that life, but sometimes who played characters in the show themselves. So they consulted with basically just real people, real experiences. They had real people from the Baltimore streets playing characters in the show, and I think that just shows how authentic the end result ended up being. Where it's arguably just they just, I don't know, they just kind of sensationalized a couple of things, or they combined multiple people into one or two characters. And it worked out perfectly, and it created one of the, in my opinion, the best TV shows of all time from that. Hey, Paxion, you eat cereal sideways. I don't know how to respond to that. I just hope you don't spill the milk on you. You're probably one of those people that puts the milk in first and then the cereal.
And I think that is absolutely wonderful. So for me to circle back, because I've been talking too long.
Yes, Fluffy Panda, that is.
I know you want to make the perfect game. And I started this by saying there is no perfect game. But there is the perfect game for you.
Truth.
Find that perfect game and make it. That'll be your perfect game.
I agree with Tim on that. Yeah, that's a good one. There's a lot of interesting nuance to that, but I think that talking about understanding is really key to living. This is my shitty advice for the day. The more you understand, I think the happier you'll be in life, and the more humble you'll be, which are both good things. I think it's safe to think that you know what's right. There's a lot of safety in that, and there's a lot of good feeling. But if you never approach life thinking you might be wrong, then you're not going to make a lot of friends, or the friends you're going to make are going to be very shallow. Not good for that. You put cereal or milk first. One that falls out the bowl slower. What are you eating, like in a sieve? Either way, guys, that was a great video. Thank you, Tim, for that one. I do wish that I could comment on Tim, but I feel like these reactions are kind of my discussion. I hope Tim is still okay with them. I don't know if he watches them. Maybe he does. But no, these are great. These really make me think, and thinking and understanding always make me feel like I know less. But at the same time I know more. I don't know how to balance that sometimes. The more I know, the less I know. Or the less I feel I know. Which I think is ultimately a good thing. So guys, go give Tim a like and subscribe, please. He deserves it. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, I hope you appreciated that one. And we will keep watching some more of these today. So take care, YouTube.